Hey everybody, Keith here, live in the lab, live in the Business Athlete Performance Lab. And we're supposed to be playing with some Coldplay today, but we're having some challenges, but we hear some, we'll put some Coldplay in post because we got to get some tunes into the podcast. Hey, listen, I'm excited to be here today. It's Friday, end of the week for everybody who's paying attention, who's watching this live instead of on demand. We got a special guest today, Sardor Akhmedov. We're going to talk entrepreneurship, talk about business, and in this attention economy, I did a little bit of reading on Sardor, watched some videos, listened to some podcasts. I think we're going to have an entertaining chat today. I think he's going to keep everybody's attention. So stick around for very shortly. We're going to introduce Sardor to the scene. If you haven't heard the last two shows, we're brand new to this stuff here in the Business Athlete Performance Lab. Check out Wednesday, Oliver Brown. Check out yesterday, Nicole Bernard. And of course, today, let's flip the screen to a dual screen. Sardor, welcome to the lab. Welcome to the Business Athlete Performance Lab.
Thanks for having me, Keith.
How's it going
Excited to be here.
Yeah, how are you today?
Doing really well. Yeah, it's Friday here. Super excited.
It is Friday, so it's funny. Let's just kind of working a flow to my interviews and getting into things with folks. We want to kind of do things a little bit differently. Keep it entertaining, keep it light. So Friday, you're an entrepreneur. I'm going to think that Fridays mean no different to you than Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, do they?
That's true. That's true, though. Yeah, I mean, trying to keep a little more time with family lately, but overall, totally. I mean, there's no, when you're an entrepreneur, especially building a big business, have ambitions like all entrepreneurs do. There's definitely not much difference between a Friday and a Monday, for sure.
So how do you manage that? How do you manage that whole idea of like, how do you not let the days blur into each other? I think a lot of people probably paying attention to this who are business athletes think to themselves, well, man, Monday's no different than Friday. Do I celebrate a weekend? How do you delineate the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I do give myself a little bit of a time off for sure. On Fridays, I do have a poker game, in evenings with other entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So I keep it call it like an edutainment type of thing, time for on weekends. I'll a lot of times be by the pool, like on Saturdays, kind of chilling, but also on my laptop, looking for deals, looking for things to learn in business. So, it's like kind of chilling, but also I can't help myself but not read like a business book or, start taking some courses. Like I have my business acquisition courses on Saturdays, for example, live. And then I'll read a business book, things like that. So like it's less hands-on work type of thing because my team is off on weekends.
Okay.
It definitely like that business mindset doesn't leave you even on weekends when you're running a business, for sure.
Yes. I'm going to get us to pause 1 second. It's got a text from Roland here. I'm going to check a little tech issue here. So let's just pause for 1 second. I'm going to throw the screen to a tech pause screen, and I'm going to make a change here to yeah, we'll go with it for now. It'll be today's. We're fine. We're preferring to stream in 1080, but she's streaming in 720. So we're gonna be a little bit pixelated today. And oh, how woe is me, right? So, so continue our conversation. Fridays, Mondays, Wednesdays, edutainment. What's downtime for you? So edutainment is poker. Edutainment is reading a business book. There is no downtime, is there?
Yep. So what is other downtime for me other than these activities?
Yeah.
Honestly, I was asked this like about a year ago, what is my hobby? And honestly, I couldn't answer. And I was kind of for some time like ashamed of myself, but then I realized, you know what, it's totally fine. I think my hobby is, learning more about business. Honestly, that is just my passion. And this is my downtime.
So so thank you for sharing that. I can sense there was this kind of a feeling of, I don't know, because I've gone through the same thing. I probably got a couple of years on you. And to this day, I still wrestle with, but my hobby is working, but it's not really working to me. So if you put me in the lab here and roll up my sleeves and learn how to build an AI machine or build a bot or have a conversation with you, like this doesn't work, right? Just like yourself, right? So I I think it's okay for us to have those feelings that hobbies are, hobbies is hobby an old school term perhaps?
I think so. Isn't it getting outdated now? You know,
Right? Like
I
like
mean, it is getting associated with some like new trendy things like pickleball and things like that. I don't necessarily fall into those trends, but yeah, maybe being less used now than it was. Yeah.
Sardar, how do you take care of yourself? How do you take care of your wellness, your physical wellness, your mental wellness? So, if one would accuse me of being a workaholic or somebody who works all the time, well, I also take care of myself and my mental self. So how do you balance that part of your 24 hours?
Yeah, sure. To me, that mental well-being and everything is just talking, talking to my family mainly. I'm very much of a,
Good for
a
you.
family guy. As much as I'm a hard worker and entrepreneur. That I think when I talk things out, anything's on my mind, that puts me in a good state of mind. When I can talk things out in a personal level and even on things that are going on in business. If I come home and talk to my family, that just, puts me in a better health state, I think. I do sometimes do therapy as well, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's on demand.
Hmm.
Like if I do feel like I need to talk to a neutral person about things that have just piled up in my head. Definitely not. I'm actually an advocate for therapy in a way that I want to remove that stigma around therapy being a thing of, oh, wow, he does therapy. What's going on? What's wrong with him? Right? Like there's definitely that perception, especially in my culture where I come from Uzbek and Russian speaking culture. Like there's that stigma around like therapy that it's something that what's wrong with him? He does therapy. But to me, like, I think doing therapy is actually a must for everybody. So that would be my second thing. And the third thing is that I'm trying to do more of and trying to get into habit of is writing and journaling. I think it just gives you such a clarity of mind
Yeah.
when you journal and you just slows you down, your thoughts and everything. And you're able to process things that are going on in your life in a much more thoughtful way, you know. So those three are my mental health type of kind of things that I do. Other than that, I try to work out. Not gonna lie, not very consistent with it, but try to do it at least once a week.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Hey, the effort is where you start, right? So if you're getting there once a week, it's better than it's none per week, right? I love the
Exactly.
foundation of family. It's obviously very it's my foundation. Would you say that foundation has enabled your success?
Totally, totally. Everything and anything, if there's something going on in your life, in your personal life that, you're not very happy about
Yeah.
and you're not able to solve it, that's definitely going to affect your life in
Yes.
business. I mean,
Yes.
in business.
Yes.
So you're not going to be able to be as productive. You're not going to be able to, keep other, especially as a leader in business. You're not going to be able to keep your team, motivated and be pumped. Like if you're not in a good mental state yourself, right? So that for me is a big one, and it's also because I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My parents are my mentors in business too. Especially my dad. I consult with him on everything. Even though he's not in tech, I just consult with him all the time. We speak, a few times a week at least to just kind of go over everything in life and business, mainly in business with my dad and personal life with my mom. But totally they do have a big impact on business as well. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Uh there's a sign in the mudroom of my house that has, I don't know, 100 silver fish on it, and there's a blue fish in the middle of it. And I always say to my kids, you know, be the blue fish. Uh,
Mm.
you Uzbekistan, did I say that correctly?
Yeah, Uzbekistan. Yeah.
Yeah. You were the blue fish, Sardor. Would I say that? Did I say it correctly?
Sure. But what do you mean by bluefish?
Well, you swam upstream against everyone else. You were a leader.
Oh yeah.
Everybody was going in that direction. You clearly were grounded in your family. You clearly learned that talking was helpful. You clearly learned that therapy was even more helpful, and you clearly learned very early, that was going to help you where you are today. It's clear to me. Am I correct in those assumptions?
100%, 100%. Yeah, and that, yeah, regarding bluefish for sure. I've definitely been always that that, unconventional thinker, so to say, like, somebody who used to challenge the status quo and still does.
Yeah.
Especially in Uzbekistan, I used to, because we were unfortunately heavily influenced by the communist culture for
Yes.
almost a century, being part of the Soviet Union.
Yes.
There's still many things that are part of the old system, the legacy system, that, start with the educational system. Unfortunately, the educational system has not evolved at all since the Soviet Union times.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. Like, we have more than 30 different subjects at school, all throughout first grade all the way up to 12th grade. More than 30 different subjects. Like, a kid doesn't need that many subjects. They can't even comprehend that many, right? Versus in the US, when I came, I was fascinated. There's only like 5, 6 subjects that we take at a
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
right? Throughout school. And I realized why that was done is it's because Soviet system was not based on like educating kids, but it was more on like creating this system of making people conform to authority, just to
Hmm.
follow the regime and authority.
Hmm.
And your teacher was the authority that you had to like really respect and really follow the orders of, because that brought up kids in the mindset of following the regime, right? Because that was the whole idea and thesis of what the Soviet Union was built on. And unfortunately, some of those things have still stayed in the independent country of Uzbekistan and other post-Soviet Union countries. And I always, as a kid, just kind of like intuitively, not even realizing these things that I'm saying now, but I always realized that the whole system is wrong.
Hmm.
So I did go up against that stream. I mean, me being able to even like come and study abroad and leave the country and everything, that is also being that blue fish,
Hmm.
because I didn't like the system.
How do you what did your father do, Sardar? You said your father was an
Uh,
entrepreneur. What did he do? What did you grow up watching?
yeah. So yeah, my dad was already an entrepreneur by the time I was born, and already like conscious, so to say. He comes from a very humble background of very, very poor family, being a driver, a bus driver, I think he was, just for a job, and then doing some other odd jobs, and then kind of coming to business by finding a mentor and just going into that. But yeah, when I was growing up, my dad was already an entrepreneur. He was still like kind of early in his career,
Hmm.
like he worked long hours, more longer hours than he does now, so he wasn't very, very present in family. And it's also part of that culture as well, where men are not as present in family as women are.
Hmm.
uh, and they're not expected to be as close with the family as in the Western culture, for
Hmm.
example, right?
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I looked up at my dad as an entrepreneur, which is what inspired me to be an entrepreneur as well. And I think having that mentorship was just the lowest hanging fruit for me to be able to do that.
It would seem that you grew up so obviously father was a big influence, but the culture around you would I'm going to assume would make it difficult to execute on being an entrepreneur. Am I correct in
The
that? Yeah.
cultural,
So just where you grew or where growing up, was it difficult? Like, is it difficult to be an entrepreneur in Uzbekistan today?
I I would say for some like reasons of just being kind of the system being not fair
Yes.
to you, in a way that it's unfortunately it's corrupt,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
as they are. But is it an opportunistic place to do business? For sure, because if you can find your ways, find your connections, and know what to do with certain people, there's actually big opportunity to do business. And especially like when I was also growing up, it was the early 2000s. It was just the second decade after the capitalism was
Hmm.
introduced to the country.
Hmm.
We were
Hmm.
able to do business. So actually, even though yes, the system was corrupt and yeah, there were challenges of doing business, the market opportunity wise, actually, it still has more opportunities than the US market has, I would say.
Hmm.
Because in the US, you've had capitalism for over 200 years, and wherever you look, there's already a business there,
Yes.
right? So it's very competitive. And Uzbekistan, there's still some niches that nobody has just taken yet. You can go and do business, and there's more opportunity that way. And I would say it's less corrupt than it was now, for sure. It's getting better. So not to talk, bad about the country. It definitely has seen a lot of improvement lately.
Yeah, yeah.
So long, answer that I just gave, if I, say it in a short way, it's actually not been a hurdle. And if anything, the market environment actually inspired me to be an entrepreneur more.
Yeah, that's excellent. One of the themes of being an entrepreneur is knowing how to execute, is is not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to fall on your face, and then just trying again. What does an entrepreneur mean to you? And second part of that question is, how do you execute consistently? Because that's the other biggest challenge for most humans is executing consistently day after day after day. How do you do that, Sardor? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I was just talking about it yesterday, how I've recently just had this self-awareness of realizing that it's first of all being self-aware and knowing your strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
In anything.
Yes.
So I realized my strength is more high-level ideation, vision, coming up with new ideas on how to grow, how to, do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But actual execution, like if we're talking like hands-on execution,
Mm-hmm.
that's not me. That's actually my weakness. Realize. So what I started doing is I started hiring more around my weaknesses
Mm-hmm.
and delegating more than I used to before. Because
Mm-hmm.
before I used to think like, oh, I have this idea, I have to go implement that myself. And now my mindset actually switched to from like, how do I get something done to who do I get to do this by, right?
I,
And
I,
that's my answer to like how I execute. I have a team who's going to execute, and I'm more on the idea side. I give them vision, and they go and like implement that.
it's funny to hear you say that, Sardar. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because as I'm hearing you speak, I'm reflecting on some of my own self awareness still in my life where you're like, okay, I got this idea. I'm gonna go do it, and then
Yeah,
and then you're like, wait a minute. It's probably better off if somebody else does it and I help them do it, right? So, but yet as an entrepreneur, sometimes it's so difficult to do that unless you catch yourself and have that awareness, isn't it, Sardar?
exactly. A lot of entrepreneurs still stay as an employee in the employee mindset
Yeah.
of going to do things for themselves for too long.
Yes.
They're afraid to delegate. They're afraid to, yeah. I think delegating is actually a very underrated skill. It's such a
Yes.
not a simple skill, because it requires a lot of trust,
Yep.
a lot of psychology of understanding who's the right person to do certain things, and a lot of patience,
Yes.
because the odds are if you've been doing something that you're very good at, you can delegate it to somebody who's going to do it better, but that will require time and effort and patience. Because I was just thinking about this yesterday. We hired this girl recently, 3 months ago, I think,
Mm-hmm.
in the sales ops role.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at how she's doing her job, like, I was at a conference on Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
and there's certain things that she had to run by me,
Mm-hmm.
but unfortunately I was not available because I was at a conference.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, I look at Slack and I'm looking at messages, and she asked me certain things like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? But then because I wasn't able to answer, at
She figured it
the end
out.
of the day, she executed perfectly on those things because she didn't have access to me. And I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of her. She has really completed all these things without me. I wasn't even there online. But then I'm realizing, well, that's because it took me 3 months to go back and forth with her. And I would like on a daily basis, like teach her, train her, train her, right? But see, like that patience paid off, like a lot of these tasks throughout these 3 months, it would have taken me much less time to execute them myself because I knew those things better. I've done them for years. But that 3 months of patience now turned a lot of these things that I was doing myself into a delegated system where somebody else is actually focusing on that and actually doing a better job than me. And for me now, getting these things is just one conversation away, and it gets done.
Often, I would say, as an entrepreneur, the hardest thing for us to do to scale is to pause, teach, and then empower.
Yes. And that should be your strength and focus as an entrepreneur, I think, because
Yes.
a lot of entrepreneurs are in the seat of an employee and they just have a job that they have for themselves that they're running, but business should not be just a job for you. It should be something that, is actual business.
I would say, Sardor, um, one of the, I think it's the difficult thing every entrepreneur, every business has is finding talent. So then often
Yes,
what we do is we then just hire talent. And then what we end up doing as an entrepreneur or as a leader is then we end up managing the talent, which then ends up being, wait a minute, I didn't want to be a manager. I wanted to be a empowerer. So then
yes,
we end up not doing what we should be doing, which is pausing, slowing things down, and truly hiring somebody who we then can empower, who you don't have to manage. Would you agree with that?
for sure,
It's so
totally.
difficult to do, though, isn't it?
It is, and a lot of people, like I said, yeah, they stay in that manager seat, yeah, and for too long, and they don't realize it because things don't change if you don't change them. Like nothing changes if nothing changes. And totally, you should try to step out of that manager role as soon as you can, delegate as much as you can, even if that means in the short term paying
Yes.
yourself. Because a lot of people also don't do it for the monetary reason. They're like, well, if I hire somebody, I have to pay them, and that's going to eat up my but believe me, it's one step backwards, but two steps forward long term because it's like, for example, right now, like we're hiring a director of sales, and that job, it's a very high salary job, which means compromising some of the profits in short term.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
is it not going to allow me to be more high level than I am now? Yes. So in the long term, it's going to pay off 2, 3x, if not 10x.
Yeah. Yeah. Sardor, is being an entrepreneur, being a hustler to you? Are hustling and entrepreneur the same thing?
Question. So I'd say in the beginning, yes. In the first few years, maybe, but it shouldn't be. I think like the pro entrepreneurs, yeah, I mean, everybody start with hustling. I think it is required, unless it's not the first business you're starting. So I would say if it's one of your first businesses you're starting, you have to hustle. You have to, if especially if it's the very first one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, like, when I was getting into this business, it was totally hustling for me all day long. Like I would be in a family dinner, and if a lead comes in, I would step out to another room and take the call.
But isn't
You
that
know,
fun though? Like, isn't that part of being an entrepreneur?
for sure, 100%. Yeah, it was fun. And, do I do that now? No. And if I started another agency tomorrow, I wouldn't do it now either. I would just hire right away. But yeah, in the beginning, it is fun, and it is something you have to do. And
I'm
that's
going to
something.
challenge you. I'm going to challenge you, my
Yeah,
friend, because I'm doing
yeah,
it again. I'm starting a new business
yeah.
again, right?
Okay,
And I feel like I'm hustling again because I want
okay.
to, and I'm like, you know what? Kids are older. I'm different stage of my life. I'm looking forward to
Are you
talk
starting the same exact business you've done before, or is it a completely new thing?
different.
That's why.
Okay, fair
Yeah,
comment. So fair comment. Yes, right.
yeah,
So, but there's something fun in it. There's something youthful about it. There's something exuberant about it. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of
yeah,
energy in that. You know what I've also learned too, is you kind of get older too, Sardar. You kind of give an F a little less too, right? You're like, well, nah, I got nothing to lose. I'm going to go knock on their door. I'm going to go reach out. I'm going to go say
yeah,
hi. And you're like,
yeah.
because you learn that at the end of the day, as I was talking with Nicole yesterday, nobody really cares anyways, right? At the end of the day, nobody cares. Like, oh, hey, this, you know what I mean? Like, it's just go and hustle, go and do it.
I agree. Actually, there's a fun side to it, especially if you're starting something new. Yeah, like actually, that's made a really good point. One thing that really I think when you're an entrepreneur, you get bored out of your own business if you stay in something for too long, and you always have that desire to start something new. We'll have new ideas with my business partner every single day that we want to
Yes.
execute on
Yes.
because and it's so hard to say no to them because we want
Oh,
to focus on the main.
yes. I can relate.
And that urge is killing, man. It's
Hence,
but
I
you
started the lab because the lab started as one thing, and that ended up being kind of an incubator for ideas, right? That we're now we're building these ideas
yeah,
into
it evolves to something else. Yeah,
right.
yeah. But I think it's a mistake to when we have like ideas that are completely outside of our scope of expertise
Oh
to
yeah.
try to do them at a cost of your own existing business, because we've done that mistake before
Ah,
where we went and started during the pandemic a
yes.
complete new SaaS business that we had no freaking idea about. Like, had we started an agency business again or invested the same amount of money into that agency, we invested $500,000 into that product,
Yeah.
burned,
Yeah.
gone.
Yes.
I know if we invest in the right business, it would have been different. So now what we're doing is like, it's still very hard to say no to these ideas. Like yesterday, my business partner and I, we were for 3 hours excitedly discussing a brand new business idea for launching a classified ads website.
Yeah.
Like both of us haven't done this before, but we were so excited to start it. We almost, decided to do it. But at the end, we decided, okay, this is way too much. Right now.
I can completely relate. Started a gig late last year, early this year, woke up early this year, looked in the mirror and said, I'm kind of over my head with this one. Not working out, and had to make a pivot, right? And it takes courage. Would you not? It takes courage as an entrepreneur to make a pivot and actually recognize that, like you and your partner did, okay, we've just spent 500 grand and it's not working. It's probably time to change direction, right? Because it's easy to spend the next 500 grand, isn't it, Sardor?
Exactly. Because we had that conversation when we were 200 grand in.
Yeah.
We were like, should we
right.
Stop? No, let's keep doing. Let's keep. We were like 300 grand in. This is getting too much. Let's maybe stop it. No, let's do a little more. It's gonna pay off. It's gonna pay off. When it got to $500,000, we're like, all right, this is getting too much, and we haven't got any money back from this. It's been 3 years. Let's just pull, let's pause this. At least pause. And we said pause because we couldn't say stop. It's so hard to completely kill off a project that you've been working on for so long. So we paused it, and we still can't help ourselves. Like every month we remember when there's an opportunity that rings a bell about that product. We're like, oh shit, we should go back to
it. It takes immense discipline to stay focused, right? It really does take immense discipline to stay focused.
Half the battle is saying no to the opportunities, that are actually distractions, at the end of the day. Because when you do one business for a very long time, which is very hard, there's a reward. Because like we've been doing this agency business for 10 years, and which is why we're here, and had not have those, $500,000 distractions here and there, our agency business would have been much bigger too.
One of the things I often encourage, I encourage colleagues or people I coach or customers or family members is work on your not to-do list instead of your to-do list. And it's amazing when you work on your not to-do list, how much more productive you become, because it's so easy to add your to-do list. You can just go forever. You can actually go forever. But the discipline that it takes to say, I'm not going to do that so that I can focus on this. Wow. Over time, the success you have is considerable.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had that not to-do list. I was first introduced to it when I was doing like some coaching in 2020 with a personal coach.
Yes.
And interesting ideas, and you're like, a not to-do list, huh?
Yes. So I'm going to talk something with you that I read recently that you posted. To some might be a little controversial, I think. To some might be curious, which would be this idea that Toby Lutke recently talked about canceling meetings and canceling standing meetings, and this idea that standing meetings waste time and we shouldn't have them on the calendar. And you eloquently suggested the other, that no, you think that they should be there. And I'll be really frank with you. I didn't agree with you until I read the end of it. And you said at the end of your post, paraphrasing along the lines of, if I don't keep standing meetings with my family members and friends, then I would never meet with them. So I look at it as an opportunity to use standing meetings in my calendar for my friends and family so I can keep that personal connection. I thought that was brilliant, because I do agree with Lutke that standing meetings at work are a waste of time. I really strongly believe that, but I really liked your philosophy of, but if you use that same philosophy with your friends and family, you're going to have a better life. That's pretty powerful stuff.
Yes. And I'll tell you, I kid you not, like with some of my close friends that especially don't live in my town, that we don't just casually keep up with. That we used to live in the same town. Now they moved, or I moved, right? When they reached out to me like, oh, we should catch up. Usually, like most of my conversations used to stay in like, oh yeah, we should catch up. Sure. And we both forget about it.
And then never do it.
Then I started sending them my calendar link. And they were like, whoa, man, are you treating me as a colleague right now? Oh, am I not your friend anymore? It was like funny, right? How would you send a calendar link to your friend, to your close friend?
Yeah.
But I said, no, I'm going to actually start treating some of my, personal stuff in my life like I treat my business, where things are way more organized. And I think it's going to add more, systems and better outcomes in my personal life. So it helped. Long story short, I have 5 friends that I have standing meetings with, either on a bi-monthly or monthly basis.
Mm-hmm.
And we both don't have to remember to call each other or text each other. It's just there. It's on the calendar. We both show up to the call.
Yeah.
It's that easy. And in some cases, yeah, we have to move or reschedule, but it's again much easier. You have to remove all possible friction to getting some things done, if you want to systemize them. So for sure, yeah, I think having standing meetings with your family members or friends is totally the right thing.
Yeah, I it's funny because I I don't want to say never thought about it, but you eloquently put it, which was, sure, maybe for work it might be one thing, but if you disconnect that with friends and family, you're really missing out. And I find meetings a funny thing, Sardor. If you have a meeting with your lawyer, for example, or I'm going to make a broader suggestion. If any human being tends to have a meeting with our lawyer, we tend to just everything's got to. We can't talk to anybody because this lawyer is costing me $900 an hour, and I gotta. It becomes the most important thing, right? We all kind of have, or it's our doctor, but yet, hey, my kid wants to meet with me, or my daughter, or my wife wants to meet with me. Okay, well, I take my phone calls, I get interrupted. And it's funny how we have this complex and we have this hierarchy of how we interact at meetings. Is it not true?
100%. Yeah, man. We do have to, like you said, treat some of our personal meetings like with the same urgency and
Yeah.
authority.
Yeah.
We do.
Let's pivot a little bit about your business. So now my goal with the Business Athlete Performance Lab, live in the lab on a Friday afternoon here with Sardor. Great chat so far, my friend. I'm really enjoying this. I got to be honest, I didn't think it was going to go here, but this has been great so far.
Thank you.
I want to talk about Jafton.com. And what I want to talk about Jafton.com, and I'm going to keep giving you plugs, Jafton.com, Sardor Akhmedov at Jafton.com. What I find intriguing about your business is that you're in a business of many. You're not just, one. You're in a business, so Jafton's an app development agency, correct? Yeah.
That's right.
So I'm curious how you battle in a sea of many others. How do you make yourself different? How do you compete? How do you stand out? Because people listening to this also compete in worlds of many others. So
Yep.
How do you stand out? How does Jafton stand out as a leader in your industry?
Yep. So yeah, really good question. We are in an ultra competitive space.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there is more than 30,000 different application development agencies that at least market to the US, even if they're not located in the US. Because another thing is, when you open a clothing store in the corner, you're competing with that area only.
Right.
When you're in an online business, you're competing with the entire world.
Yes.
Because these can be provided remotely, and you're competing with people in India and Pakistan, everywhere,
Yes.
right? That are just lowering the price. So, but first thing is, the lead gen. That you should be able to position yourself in the right places to be able to be discovered. That's half the battle, because without being discovered, it doesn't even matter what you're offering, because people are not going to even discover you and find you, right? So that's one thing. We have a really good discoverability, and if you're looking for app development, the odds are you're going to see us on some of the websites on Google. And the second thing is, once you do come in through the door now, then our offers, first of all, our experience is 10 years experience. That's already puts us in the top 10% of the 30,000 companies there, right? Some of the portfolio projects that we have big brands, big logos, national companies that work with us. But another thing is also, I'll tell you a story, actually. I think make it anecdotal will be the best way.
Yeah.
We work with currently Patrick Bet-David and the Edutainment. He's one of the biggest YouTube channels on business, massive guy. And I've been following him since 2019, been a fan. And then last year, he reached out to us, and why he hired us among any other 30,000 companies in the US is, first of all, we were local to him. He's in South Florida. We're in South Florida. So that eliminates a lot of competition. But even in South Florida alone, there's more than 400 app development agencies, right? The reason he chose us is, because we were not too small, but also not too big, right in the middle. And he, as an entrepreneur, from his experience hiring so many contractors and agencies, he's always had the best experience with the medium-sized companies.
Right.
because you're big enough to have the experience, like we are, like 120 people and been in business for 10 years, but also we're not too big to neglect him as a client. He's not one of the hundreds of clients we have. We only have 25 or so clients at a time, you know? So he still does receive that more individualistic approach and attention. I mean, his team does, versus if he worked with a multi-billion-dollar like Accenture that would also charge him a lot more, but also not give him enough attention, you know? So that's, I think, where we really stand out. We're in that perfect middle where our size is not too big and not too small.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that, because I found the same thing myself with it. You know, if you can find a spot within kind of the budgetary range of how somebody spends money, and you can find, for example, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you can find companies that will spend so much money before they have to have a lot of decision makers in the process, and if you can find that niche, you can get checks cut to you all the time, right? It's finding that spot where it's not too big, not too little, and there's a decision maker who you can get directly in front of, and they're just happy to cut checks, right? And then you're off to the races, right? No bureaucracy, and off you go, right? Solving a problem, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Sort of, you've been recognized for bootstrapping companies. I bootstrapped my first company and had a wonderful exit. What are the core principles that you believe in that you could suggest to somebody who's listening to this who wants to bootstrap their company? What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, pick the right type of business you want to start. Not every single business can be bootstrapped, right? Because if you're building like something like SpaceX, it's very hard to bootstrap that. You know, you do need capital. But there's certain businesses where it's way more possible than others. And one of them is, I'm going to speak from my own experience, agencies, right? Agencies is probably the most bootstrappable business, that's the word, on earth, or one of the top three, perhaps. So what I would suggest is get very scrappy and focus on sales, first of all, you know, because an agency business, for example, in every business, actually, like there's front end and there's back end, right? Front end being the brand, the marketing, the sales, and then the back end being fulfillment. So I would say a lot of rookie entrepreneurs, a lot of them make a mistake. What I've seen, they built the back end, a good back end. They hire a team, they rent an office, they make sure that the back end is working, and they don't pay enough attention to front end, don't even have that figured out yet. You know, can't tell you how many clients we have. We built them apps. You know, they're taking care of the back end. They've outsourced their app development to us, to the best. But when I ask them what's their marketing plan, they don't have it, or the sales plan, they don't have it. They're like, oh, well, isn't it going to market itself, or isn't it going to be growing organically? No, if you're you know, an app in the app store, one of the many, one of the millions, nobody's going to discover you if you don't make that effort to be discovered. So I would say, actually, I'd argue that the front end, especially if you're bootstrapping, is more important, and it has to come first, has to be figured out first. Then the back end can always be outsourced while you figure out how to do that in-house, right? So let's say you start an agency, a marketing agency, you start making sales, you start generating leads, you close the deals. Now you don't have the fulfillment. That's not too big of an issue, because you can always outsource the fulfillment to another agency under a white label while you start hiring your own people, you know? So that would be my biggest piece of advice. Focus on the front end and sales first.
I could not agree with you more. It's amazing to me, Sardor, how many people have is it this the right word? Yeah. A lack of respect for sales, and a lack of respect for sales professionals and sales experts. So when you talk about an entrepreneur or a hustler, you're talking about somebody who can sell. It's amazing to me how many people are focused on human resources and operations and every other part of the business, but they quickly forget that without sales, every single one of those titles don't exist. Nothing else exists. And it's fascinating to me how often, even in the corporate world where I worked for a long time, so much emphasis placed on every other part of the business, and then all the disrespect thrown on the sales side of things. It's like, they're just a sales guy, they're just the greasy salesperson. Well, actually, no, because if we're not selling anything, y'all don't got a job.
Yeah, just bringing that revenue that pays your salary. You know, like it's all sales. Yeah.
which goes back to executing, which goes back to putting your foot in front of each other and just doing it. And that's because that's the hard stuff. People don't want to do hard work. Would you agree with that?
People don't learn from hard work.
People don't want to do hard work.
Oh yeah, a lot of people,
It's
yeah.
easier to be. It's easier to have bureaucracy. Am I saying something true and controversial, or how do you, as an entrepreneur, how do you feel about that?
I'd say even before like the bureaucracy. I mean, a lot of people just don't pay enough attention to the sales to the point where they'll think like a fancy office or a big team is going to actually like make them a legit business. But yeah, they will underestimate the importance of sales and how that should come first before anything else. Because I get reached out by a lot of agencies that say, "Oh, we have an amazing team of developers, but we don't have deals. Can you please give us some deals? Can you subcontract to us?" Like, no, I mean, I have my own team first of all, but you made a mistake of like hiring all these people without even having deals first.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting to me how often sales is this kind of, there is this assumption that if we create something, people will just buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, especially if you get romanticized by the idea. A lot of our clients, some of them, unfortunately, startups, they get romanticized by the idea of like, that their idea is so good.
Yes.
It's gonna love it and it's gonna go viral.
Yes.
Even if it was the best idea, I mean, I don't disagree. They might have the best idea. For something to go viral, you need to give it a kick. Virality doesn't happen accidentally. I mean, it sometimes does, but even if it's sort of accidental, the person who caused it may not realize how they caused it, but they have done something, some kind of a spark and a kick that caused that virality in the first place. There's this really good book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point, where he actually explains the science of things going viral, and how sometimes unintentionally people make things go viral, but there's always some kind of a cause and effect that was, behind the virality of something.
In the world of app development, we've obviously been inundated with AI and generative AI discussions over the last almost year now. How has ChatGPT and the generative AI world impacted your workspace?
So I would say it has impacted both our front end and back end. First of all, on the front end, on the sales side, there's a lot more requests for generative AI projects, even if their core is not focused on AI, they will want to add some kind of AI feature for sure. Like 9 out of 10 projects right now, they want some kind of AI. So that's one thing. Now, on the back end, we also are using AI tools ourselves to make our work more efficient. ChatGPT is like on every employee's computer. We actually, some organizations are prohibiting, we actually encourage people, and some of them, so we had to like mandate it for use.
Yes, good for you.
Yeah,
no, good for you.
Makes them more efficient. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't. It's amazing to me that companies are like, no, we don't want our people more productive.
Yeah. I don't know for any reason. Like they are afraid. A lot of enterprises are afraid of like data leakage and data security, things like that.
I'll throw this at you. I'll throw this to you, Sardor. Those are great headlines. Those are great headlines that drive clickbait. Are they real? Sure, those are real concerns. I don't want to be dismissive of those real concerns. But
yeah, might not be. But OpenAI, regardless, still addressed that, and they actually released the enterprise version. So no excuse now. There's an enterprise secure version now for these big companies if they want like end-to-end encryption, whatever. It's there. So there's definitely no excuse now to not use it. And that's one thing. That's the lowest hanging fruit. We also use things like Copilot, which is, lets you code alongside with you, makes it more efficient. We also are using generative AI products within our coding and building ecosystems. Like we're using Flutterflow right now, a low-code platform that has a generative AI feature. Yeah. You can type in name of the screen and we'll just generate that for you.
Yeah, I've played with it a little bit myself. There's some pretty cool stuff happening there.
Yeah, it's actually a very good platform. We were at their conference on Tuesday talking to the founders and everything. So it's a very powerful platform. So like, yeah, platforms like that have definitely, shortened our time to develop apps by 2-3x.
I have to think then you use that. So then again, we go back to the question, Sardor, about competing in a space where there's thousands. You
Yeah.
can use
Oh
speed.
yeah.
You can use speed to your advantage, aren't you?
We actually are. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. We are, that's one of our like advantages right now that we're using when we pitch, that our speed is actually, higher than competition.
I'll tell you something. Back when I started my first company, um, I was carrying a BlackBerry. I was carrying one of the first BlackBerries where I lived. There was four in the city, and I had one of them. And
Yeah.
I remember getting an email back when mobile email wasn't really a thing. So I'm dating
Yeah.
myself. I was
Yeah.
watching American Idol, dating myself, and I got an email from one of America's greatest brands saying, "Hey, we need some work." And I responded within seconds with a proposal minutes later because I had this BlackBerry that enabled me not to get off my couch and just respond.
Yeah.
I got the
Yeah.
business. As an entrepreneur, as a
Yeah.
hustler, it was that first big contract where I'm like, oh. And then I quickly realized it became my competitive advantage, where I was always
Yeah.
the first guy getting the proposal back because I was using my BlackBerry to beat everybody else.
Wow. Wow.
So to hear,
Wow. Yeah.
so you as an entrepreneur who's saying, okay, I'm competing against what 300,000 other agencies or 400 in
Yeah.
Florida. Okay, if there's
Yeah.
400 in Florida, we're going to be the fastest out of the 400 in Florida.
Exactly. Exactly. That's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, we definitely are using that, and I think everybody should be using AI and all the possible tools. If tomorrow something else comes out, use whatever is available to you to actually increase speed. Speed actually, yeah, increases the likelihood of you closing the deal, first of
Yes.
all, but also even in your internal processes, that should be like when you go on our website, you go on About Us, one of our top values is actually speed,
Good for
speed and
you.
execution internally as well, because we want our people to also know internally that we do need speed and we value speed.
Yeah. Speed gets you paid faster too, Sardar.
Yeah.
Speed gets you
Sure.
paid faster. Hey, everybody, listen, 9 minutes to the hour here. Talking with Sardor Akhmedov, live in the lab with Keith Billis. We're starting to wrap up this hour. Great chat about entrepreneurship and so forth. Sardor, you're opinionated fellow. You're a leader. You have your mindset on things. I love it. Let's talk about remote work. It's been a big challenge for many organizations around the world. You're seeing a lot of back to work mandates in North America. What is your opinion of that? How does Jafton deal with that? What's your point of view on remote work?
Yeah, I would say, my business partner and I have a little bit of different opinions on this. He's a very big proponent of remote work, like since before remote
Me
work
too.
was even a term.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had remote teams from 2005, like,
Yeah.
which early days of internet. I as well, like I wouldn't say I'm opposed to remote work. I love it for the accessibility of it. I can hire talent anywhere without the limits. I love it. But do I want my top talent to be next to me in the office? Ideally, yes, because I still believe in that human connection and having people next to me and having that rapport and relationship and team building. I think like just the, at least for the time being,
Mhm.
don't get me wrong. I do believe hugely and massively excited about the augmented reality and being able to have remote employees
Presence.
next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Presence.
in
Yeah.
presence.
Hmm.
That's my ideal scenario. So
Hmm.
I can be in Bali and somewhere in the,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, anywhere remote location and still have my colleagues right next to me. But while that's not possible, I do like to have an in-person office. As a matter of fact, not for everybody. I mean, we can't mandate it anymore. We're not in a world where we can mandate, in-person work as much anymore.
It's true.
So, although we do have physical offices, it's optional to come in. But for my salespeople, I want to mandate it, and actually moving one of my salespeople right now from Arizona to Miami, and he's down for it too because he believes in the same thing.
Hmm.
So that he's right next to me, and if he has any question, he doesn't have to wait for me on Slack. He can just ask me right away. So it's a balance, I would say, Keith. While we don't have the VR and AR technologies to enable us remote work in such an efficient manner, I think we should still have some kind of a physical presence.
Yeah, well said. So my last business was a complete remote business. Started
Yeah.
at the early ages of the internet. It was completely distributed around the globe. Um, I wrote an article 2014 that I published 5 years before the pandemic, questioning why, probably like your partner, questioning why the world wasn't doing more like what we were
Yeah.
doing and the benefits we were gathering from all of that. But I can appreciate your point of view around not having humans with you and so forth. I was fortunate that when I reflect, my core team was in my city. We didn't work together, but we were able to at least get for
You can
coffee
always meet.
together every now and yeah, right. So the funny thing is, we just got so comfortable doing this that we just never did. We spent. I'm a big like you schedule times in the calendar. We made a lot of effort throughout the year of getting people together in person, right? So
Mhm.
quarterly events, monthly events, just making sure we got human beings together. And when I talk to companies today in consulting about remote work, it's essentially having, a remote culture architect, somebody whose job is ensuring that your team is connected, right? Not letting it happen by accident. Because if it's going to happen by accident, you're not going to succeed, because it's not going to happen by accident. But if you have somebody who's focused on that community, and we built that Sardar with wellness, because it's something we all can do. We can play dodgeball, we can go for a walk together, we can go for a hike together, and you can bring people together that way. So we found that was a way to bring people remotely together through wellness, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but you have to make a conscious effort. If you don't make, just like you make a conscious effort with your friends, if you don't make a conscious effort to connect with your team, it's not going to happen and you're going to fail. And that's what I think is happening with a lot of companies. And you know what happens as a result, Sardor? The easy answer is heck with it. You all got to come back to work. I don't want to manage this.
Yeah.
You got to come back to work. Right. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. To be that balance. Yeah.
listen, we're coming up to the top of the hour. Your time is very valuable. We've been very fortunate to have you for 55 minutes. As we wrap up this live in the lab session with Sardor Akhmedov, managing partner at Jafton, any parting comments you have for the audience? Anything you want to leave with? Anything you've missed off? Any questions? Anything you'd like to say?
No, I think the only call to action is I want to be more and more engaged with my audience, and anybody who might have liked what I said, might have kind of been inspired in any way, educated. You know, that's what I'm here for. I'm trying to educate and help anybody I can as much as possible. So you can reach out to me, and if you're listening to watching this, on LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to me. If you need any help, if you're early stages of your business, struggling with it, I would love to help. That's one of the things I enjoy doing. Matter of fact, I want to actually launch soon a live series on LinkedIn where I'm going to be, getting some volunteers in to go and like do a live consult on their business, tear down of their, landing pages, websites, conversion, lead gen, things like that, to consult them live on the call. So things like that I enjoy doing, and reach out to me if you need help with that. And yeah, you can find me on all socials, Sardor Akhmedov.
Awesome.
I think, yeah, that was more of a closing kind of a call to action, but hope that was okay.
That was
Yeah.
great, man. That was great. I really enjoyed having you in the lab. I enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to come back again and do some live consults and do some fun stuff, let's do that. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I wish you all the best in the business. And let's stay in touch. You can connect with Sardor on LinkedIn. Go find him on all the socials. We'll be posting a bunch of content post this show, so that you guys can see this on live on demand, and et cetera, et cetera. So great entrepreneurial advice today from the show. Sardor, I appreciate you joining us today. Live in the lab, I'm Keith Billis.